Redditors who lost their job because of a post to a social media platform. What happened? Story 1. I didn't lose my job over a Facebook post, but I recently got someone fired because of one I made. I got a call from my parents last weekend that their older dog had been hit by the newspaper delivery driver in their neighborhood. This younger girl was constantly speeding 45 on a short residential road and was seen on her phone while driving. Complaints had been made before, but apparently no action was taken. The dog was 13 years old and could barely manage to hobble, so it was clearly a case of the driver going too fast and not paying attention. She even had the audacity to cuss at my dad while he was trying to get the dog off the street. The newspaper company wasn't returning calls to my parents regarding the driver's safety and behavior, so I decided to give them a push in the right direction and made a shaming post on their Facebook page. It got attention and went as viral as a local newspaper's page can get, and they finally got in contact and terminated the driver's contract. My parents live in a small town about 2 miles from what could be considered a main road. We've had dogs there for 20 years at this point, and this is the first incident. Our first dog actually did roam all day, like the 4 other dogs that lived in the neighborhood. My parents got an invisible fence once the state took over maintenance of the road and it got paved, since that means vehicles other than just neighbors would be driving on it. Mail, deliveries, etc. The first dog lived to 16 and had to be put down due to increasingly bad arthritis, even under these dangerous conditions of being allowed off a leash. The point is, this isn't New York or even a suburb. This is a very close-knit small-town neighborhood off the main road. My parents got an invisible fence as soon as safety became an issue. Regarding why the older dog was off the leash on the road, my dad was taking the 2 dogs for a walk. The younger one, the older dog's son, is 13 but still relatively spry, so he goes off ahead. The older dog is slow and usually waits until they're ahead to leave the yard and then she catches up. My dad walks them back to the pier at the end of the road, so in total, the dogs are unleashed in the actual street for less than 50 feet. They're never let out of the yard without being on a supervised walk. There aren't any leash laws where my parents live, and having the dogs under verbal control is legal for the area. I looked up the laws because I took this into account after it happened. If anyone gets mad at me for getting the girl fired, she was a dangerous driver anyways. There's no way the dog just surprised her by jumping out in the road with how slow she was. She was clearly being careless, and she didn't hear my dad yelling for the dog either. She deserved to be fired for her driving, not for the dog. If the main aspect of your job is driving, you should be good at it and do it safely. This is a neighborhood with children, and she has proven time and again safety's not her priority. I don't mean to make light of losing a pet, but they should watch John Wick. There's justice in that. Story 2. Worked at GameStop until 2010. The store was in a mall and parents would always leave their kids in the store and go do their shopping. Sometimes the children would cry, sometimes they'd pee themselves, and one even had to do a number 2. Parents would get mad at us for not bringing them to the bathroom. Like what? Or start screaming at their kids for not just playing games for a few hours without causing any problems. I tweeted about how the store wasn't there to babysit children and never really thought about that tweet again. Until a few months later, the same thing happened. A parent drops off a kid in the store and leaves. 20 minutes later, an older-looking guy is outside the store on his flip phone, aiming it at the store. He's creeping me out, but I continue offering pointless warranties to customers while waiting for my next break. And then, I noticed him walk near the entrance of the store and ask that kid where his parents are. This seemed really fishy and the guy looked beyond suspicious. I was thinking he could be a creep and I was right. He gets the kid to go with him. I call up mall security so they could check it out and they caught him before he left the mall. He was arrested and the kid was crying, asking for his mom, who mall security could not reach because, as it turns out, she went to some stores outside of the mall area and didn't actually come back for another 2 hours, at which point she threatened to sue me, GameStop, the mall, etc. The security guard lady told her that child services were called, and they all walked away. That was the last time I saw them. A few days later, the district manager shows up in the store and I was fired on the spot because that lady made a complaint. DM found my Twitter and informed me that my approach to yesterday's dilemma and my tweet about how GameStop isn't a babysitting service has made them believe that I don't have the GameStop spirit. Both the manager and district manager told me I could use them as a reference in my resume though, which was great until they both lost their jobs a few weeks later. I guess the GameStop spirit means letting parents leave their kids for 2 hours and leaving the company to be responsible for anything that happens to them. Story 3. Former Chipotle manager here. As many of you know, Chipotle gives away free stuff on Halloween, so it's a mandatory weekend for everyone to work. Well, one of our employees called off that Thursday saying he had swine flu. Right. Of course, he posted pics of his weekend partying on Facebook, upon which he was friends with our kitchen manager, general manager, and district manager. Pre-company policy and common sense, you can't return to work from serious contagious stuff without a doctor's note. So he shows back up on Wednesday acting all fine and saying the doc cleared him. Oh, but his mom threw his release note away. Too bad, buddy. We need that or you can't work. Since we didn't know he would have it, we only gave him 1 day on the schedule anyway. So then, his mommy calls me and asks why he can't work. I ask her if she went to a restaurant and found out a cook had proven he was cleared from having swine flu. Would she eat there? She saw my point. But it's not his fault she threw away the note. They were remodeling. I asked, why can't the doc write a new one? Well, he went on vacation. Couldn't the receptionist or a PA get them something? She huffed and hung up on me. The next day he puts on FB, Dear Chipotle and managers, instead of cutting hours on someone, why not fire them outright? Screw you guys. Pretty easy to let him go after that. Psst. Let's be honest. Does your room look dull as sh**? Yeah, well, most do. Luckily, I just launched Rufus Rugs. Custom, hand-tufted rugs. And no, this isn't some BS dropshipping company. We have a warehouse in Canada where me and my friends hand-tuft every single rug. So if you're looking to bring your room to life with some awesome anime rugs, or literally anything you can think of, we can get it done for you. From Rick and Morty to The Last Airbender, we've got you covered. Hit the link in the description to get a free quote. Story 4. Oh boy, Scarf Tuesday story time. So here's a funny and quite immature story. Keep it short and sweet. I worked for a place that had a gift shop. Inside the gift shop were the most ugly and wearable scarves in the face of the planet. I was younger and didn't really care about the company or any possible consequences. I started a movement called Scarf Tuesday. Basically, a few of us on the clock would meet up at 9 every Tuesday and wear a scarf for a photo on Facebook. These photos started getting likes and people loved them, so we kept going. A few months later, I got pulled into my boss's office. On the wall, I kid you not, are at least 20 of the Scarf Tuesday pictures with the faces blurred out. My boss asks me to this day the funniest question I've ever been asked. What do you see here? I smiled and told him it looked like employees wearing scarves. He said he found it hilarious, but it was unacceptable and he was disappointed. Apparently, somebody watching the cameras wasn't happy and watched us for weeks piling evidence. Everybody, 15 people at least, had similar meetings in the next few days. I didn't get canned right away because we stopped doing Scarf Tuesday, but the retaliation was awful and eventually, I was blamed for just about everything that went wrong and got fired. Looking back at it, it was foolish. I fell into a deep depression for a few months because of being unemployed. It helped me grow into a man though, and now I have a full-time managerial job making twice as much. I'll never regret it because it brought me on a path that led to a better life. So let me get this straight. This guy generated publicity for some place's gift shop and got fired for it? Seems reasonable. Story 5. I got fired from an internship for posting on Reddit before. It was a very small environmental engineering consulting firm. We were doing work on a site that had lead and arsenic contamination on it. The site was very dusty and if it didn't rain for a few days, the dust would often kick up and blow into the street next to the site, which happened to be the main road in this semi-smallish town. Someone mentioned on Reddit, in a totally unrelated way, that they were from this town. Made a mention of the contamination and told the dude that if he ever saw dust coming off the site, that he should contact the engineers who were housed above one of the local bars. Apparently, this guy didn't really want the site to be redeveloped at all because of the already high congestion in the surrounding roads, and he called and complained and mentioned my post on Reddit. The company was so small it was obvious it was me who posted it, and I fessed up about what I had said and immediately deleted the post. Even though I didn't do anything illegal or even remotely immoral, I was fired because I was seen as a liability. Screw that. People deserve to know if the dust they're breathing in could give them cancer. I moved on to a different field, marine biology, and haven't even remotely looked back. Story 6. I was working as a bartender and server for a place. The assistant manager was a petty tyrant and treated the staff like garbage. I had made several complaints about him to the general manager and the owner with some of the other staff, but they refused to do anything about it. So I was done with this place and was currently looking for a new job when one day, I was bartending and a very young-looking girl came. She hands me her out-of-state ID and I can tell that it is fake. I politely tell her that I can serve her alcohol and explain that in this state we don't legally have to accept out-of-state IDs, blah blah blah. She was actually very understanding and there was no scene or issue. Her other friends arrive and they move to a table. Inform their server about the fake ID. It is around this time that the assistant manager who had been drinking Bloody Marys at the bar next door all morning and then napping in the office came over. He then starts telling me that I don't know what a fake ID looks like and I don't have the right to refuse service and how stupid I am. He then tells me I have to serve the girl. I inform him that I have the legal right to refuse service, and he cannot force me to. Anyway, I go home and post on Facebook about my day, and then include a photo of when I was managing a liquor store holding a device of medieval defense made out of all the fake IDs we had confiscated in 1 year. Also, a crown. The next day I was called in and let go for refusing to cooperate with management and what have you. The manager could have been fired. I hope he tipped off the ABC to the bar when he was working. I also hope you leave a like on this video and subscribe to the channel. Story 7. Labor and employment lawyer here. I've seen people fired for the following. Posts insulting a supervisor, the employer, customers, or coworkers. Posts that show the employee has been lying about something. E.g., he's been out on FMLA leave, claiming he's in so much pain he can't sit upright at his desk, and then post a picture of himself weightlifting. Posts showing the employees violating the rules of the workplace, especially safety or hygiene, like a factory worker posting a pic of himself climbing in dangerous machinery. Posts so offensive that the company could suffer PR damage if the general public knew this person was an employee. Like dark jokes, posts advocating the overthrow of the government, posts by a doctor mocking a patient's illness, posts by an employee bragging about how she's so overpaid, etc. It's worth noting that most employees in the US are at will by default. That means you can quit for any reason at any time, but your employer can also fire you for any reason at any time. There are obviously exceptions to this, like if there is a contract that provides otherwise, if the employer fires you for an illegal reason, etc. But unless some exception applies to your situation, there's usually nothing wrong with an employer looking at your stupid Facebook posts and deciding, not really someone we'd like to have on board. Story 8. I worked in customer support for a mobile game company. I was honest with a disheartened customer who had complained that recent changes had made the game pay to win. It had, in truth, been a glitch with an update. I told them as much, assuring them the team would be fixing it in the next update. But then the game's profits skyrocketed. The team kept the glitch and put out a statement describing the change as an intentional one designed to improve the play experience. But there was my name, plastered all over the game forums, claiming the opposite. I technically worked for a separate company that provided support for several studios, but the studio behind this game was our biggest customer. They approached my bosses, furious I jeopardized their cash cow, and demanded I be fired. I promptly became familiar with the underside of the bus, as I was gone within the week. Story 9. Comcast fired me for a tweet I made. Here's what happened. Someone in my timeline posted an article about Comcast customer service. Someone replied to him saying, "Wow, Comcast actually has customer service? Lol." Working in customer service myself, I reply, from a personal account that is in no way connected with my job, with a tweet, "Yep, we do. You complain about management as much as you do." Comcast did not like that. Despite me having zero personal details on Twitter, they somehow still figured out it was me. I realized after that I had GPS auto-locate on for my tweets, so I suppose they could have looked through that data to figure out where I lived. I checked and it's clear what house I live in whenever I tweet about being home. Anyway, the point is, they linked the account back to me and fired me for suggesting the employees are anything other than 100% happy all day at work. Seriously, that's almost what they said to me when they fired me. The best I can recall was, "You said employees aren't happy. We can't have people suggesting the employees are in any way unhappy with management. It makes us look bad as a company. Comcast has worked extremely hard to get the reputation it currently has, and things like this will make people see Comcast in a negative light, which is unacceptable." They also implied, though did not outright state, they're letting legal look at it to see if they have a libel case against me. It's been 5 months and I haven't heard a damn thing from them, so I assume not. The weirdest part was, the woman firing me seemed completely unaware the general public hates Comcast. The more I hear about Comcast, the more I see that management and corporate have no idea how the real world works or what people think of them. The United States hates Comcast with its entire being. Story 10. I can't talk about specifics, but I worked as a lifeguard all through high school and university. One of my boneheaded coworkers thought it would be a good idea to film himself and a few other guards messing around on the deck toward the end of a shift, while a few people were still in the water. He posted it to Facebook, and anyone who appeared in the video or commented was let go. I had a case against my employer for several reasons. I did appear in the video, but I was off the clock and out of uniform, wearing street clothes, meaning that I was unidentifiable as a pool employee. I was visible only in the corner of the video. At no point was I seen in the frame taking part in the messing around. All of our dismissal letters had the wrong dates listed, which showed blatant negligence on our employer's part in properly investigating what had happened. Half of the people who were let go were not present at work on the day our dismissal letters claimed the video took place. This was in the earlier days of social media, so our employee manuals and disciplinary guidelines did not include any material regarding social media usage whatsoever. No patrons were hurt because of the guards' actions. No negligence could be demonstrated in their part. Our employer did not follow its disciplinary guidelines in terms of warnings, suspensions, etc. All of us had clean records in regard to the incident. Story 11. A little over a year ago, a bunch of employees at my old job got a rash. It wasn't contagious, our blood was clean, and the doctors were confused. I took steroids from day one and had it for a little over 2 weeks, I believe. I didn't even have it as bad as a couple of people. Everyone continued to work, even though some people had it in exposed areas. Employees were itching and talking about it, but management did nothing. Even the manager had it, but the owner didn't, so he didn't care to take any action. Well, I posted a picture of my rash on Reddit and gave absolutely no information where I worked. It got to the front page of r/ and a coworker saw it and obviously recognized it. He showed people because he thought it was funny. A Redditor connected the dots to spell something inappropriate. That one was passed around. But there was a coworker already out to get me and she was close with our manager. So they told the owner that I had posted the picture on Facebook, which obviously would have been a big deal. So the manager told me to leave, but said she would have the owner meet with me. I knew as soon as I got home that she wasn't going to tell the owner to contact me. But I was already planning to quit the next weekend, so I didn't bother to meet with him. I'm not working at a place that allows the majority of their staff to get a rash and not investigate it. I should probably add that this was a restaurant. That story took a turn for the worst given that last sentence. How could management and the owner be so careless? That could ruin a restaurant to the point of no return. Story 12. Not me, but a friend of mine. He and his girlfriend at the time both worked at Zeller's. He worked as the head cook in the in-store restaurant and she worked as a server or hostess. After a few years of being together, they decided to get married. They announced their engagement proudly to everyone, and the branch manager of their Zeller's gave them a massive discount on food and supplies for the wedding. The wedding preparation took nearly a year, but they pulled it off and had a great wedding. They went to return to work, however. My friend's wife was promptly dismissed because husbands and wives aren't allowed to work in the same department. After months of lead up to their wedding, the manager somehow forgot to inform the happy couple that getting married would mean one of them being let go. So my friend posted on his Facebook, Zellers is a policy where a husband and wife may not work in the same department. Because they did not tell me and my wife this policy, my wife has been fired. If you disagree with this policy, please contact Zellers at number. The next day, he was fired as well. Story 13. We didn't lose the job, but a colleague and I were sent home. Years ago, I worked in a nightclub. One of the other guys and I used to get the post-weekend cleaning shift. It meant going in on a Monday morning to straighten the place out, do some stock stuff, etc. Normally, we'd both work the Sunday nightclub shift, so we were only ever on for a few hours of sleep and as such, easily distracted. One day, we decided it'd be hilarious to TP one of the bar areas with a blue roll. Once we were done, we took the pictures, posted them, and tidied up. About 10 minutes later, the assistant manager, who was running the shift, comes storming up the stairs, goes mental at us, and sends us home telling us we were never getting the shift again. It really didn't help when my colleague pointed out that he had been watching the cameras rather than playing on FB. He probably would have been able to stop us at the time. Anyway, the manager, who had been off that morning, thought it was hilarious and immediately reinstated us to the shift the following week, and doing something stupid on a Monday and taking a photo of it became an accepted part of the shift. Story 14. I had to fire someone for one. He was a volunteer firefighter and left for a call, which I allowed. 15 minutes later, someone showed me his 5-minute-old post of him riding quad saying something along the lines of, "Sometimes you just need to F off from work." I put him in a final warning, then left because he said his house was on fire. Then half an hour later, his wife tagged him in a photo of him sitting in a kiddie pool in front of his house. The funny thing is, in both cases, if he had simply asked to leave early, I probably would have said yes. Did I say my house was on fire? I meant my wife's nether region, sir. You can't fire me, I'm a firefighter. Story 15. I work in a hospital and there was a police incident in my area a couple of years ago, and multiple officers were brought into our ER. One officer was DOA, and a number of idiot hospital employees posted condolences on their Facebook pages with the name of the officer before the family was officially informed. If memory serves, 7 or 8 employees were rightfully fired for that one. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you made it this far, I'm sure you'll also enjoy What's a Secret Your Job Keeps from the Public? Story 3 was too good to be true. See you on that video.